Boxing King Media. We've gone international this week. We're doing it over Zoom for the biggest and best podcast in boxing. I think the numbers don't lie, and the feedback people are loving your opinions, don't whether they agree with them or they don't. So we're doing it internationally today as we're in different time zones. How you
We
doing?
are in different time zones, aren't we? Yeah.
Yeah, I can see a little a Buddhist statue behind you, Dom. You're not Buddhist, are you?
Well, I've got the haircut, Anna. So, and I've got, sometimes I've got the ways of Buddha. The that calm kind of personality. Take everything in my stride, and life is life, in it. So yeah, kind of got them Buddhist philosophies, I think.
All right. Well, we ain't got a lot of time, but I feel like there's a joke. You're sat in your house and you've got your jacket on, so I've got a feeling you haven't got the heating on.
Well, I'm in the cellar. You see, this is my cellar,
Oh,
and it's not got any central heating in it. It only has a room heater in it because it's subterranean. It's below ground. This is where I have all my music set up. So it's the quietest place in the house, to be honest. And when I first bought this house, this was just an earth floor, because that's what these houses were, just an earth floor. I had to dig it down, get a jackhammer it down, take it down a good foot or so to put a concrete floor in, had it all insulated. So I got another room. So it's been a lot of things over the years, but it's ideal there for doing interviews. So I don't really I'm not particularly cold, but I've just coming from the gym, had my coat on, so I'm not taking it off.
right, we'll let you off. We're gonna fly through these because I've got like just around 10 minutes before my flight boards. I'm gonna start off with probably the fight of the night from yesterday. Sam Noakes against Abdullah Mason. Abdullah Mason, we've spoken about him before, a hot prospect from the US. People are touting him to be the next big superstar in America. Sam Noakes was a massive underdog going in. One of these fighters that you always talk about how Frank Warren builds fighters low key. He's cleaned up domestically, and he was a massive underdog. And he put in a performance of a lifetime. And on two judges' cards, he lost by 1 round. What did you make of it?
Yeah, Sam. I've seen Sam. He's very quiet. I've been in the changing room when he's warming up. He's just quiet. Alan Smith trains him. I'm glad Alan's getting a bit of success with him. But he has done everything domestically, and I think that's the way they should build them up, so that when they do get into a world title fight, that they can handle it. And for him, he wasn't out of his depth, but the other guy was really fast, sharp. Two of the cards were very, very close. One was a bit wide. And I think the ones where they saw it close is because even though Abdullah was throwing a lot of shots, they weren't always clean. So he had a very high output, but not everything was hitting clean. And Sam's a tough kid. And if you're going to lose a fight in your career, you know, let it be a world title fight, not a British title fight or a Commonwealth European. At least he's got all the way through, and he finished on his feet, but gave a good account of himself. He'll be back in the mix again, but you don't want to have too many fights like that because he did get banged up a little bit. But he'll learn from that fight, and but like I say, he was well prepared for it. Alan got him in great shape, and he got through the rounds. And like you say, he was a massive underdog, but he kind of proved people wrong.
What do we learn about that? Because he was a classic example of someone that nobody would say he's a Mayweather or anything like that. People just always describe him as a strong, big man who's big at the weight, puts loads of weight on post weighing, and he's a big puncher. But he showed that he's a good body puncher. He's landed a lot of shots on a very slick American.
Yeah, like I say, the one thing about Sam is he's very confident with his power because he's knocked a lot of people out, but he doesn't rely on that as well. And you think that most of his fights have been quite easy. It's when he's getting to this top level now where they get a bit more difficult. And you think once you come up against a real tough opponent like Abdullah, that you're going to find chinks in his arm and you're going to get him out of there. And I think that's what a lot of people thought, that he had kind of a padded record, but he didn't. He was, like I say, he was well prepared for that fight. He was up to scratch. He just got outworked at times. Like I say, he'll learn again, won't he? But he's lost nothing from that. All right, he didn't get the world title fight, but he gave a really good account of himself that he can be up at that level.
How good is Abdullah Mason based on what you saw?
Yeah, he's good. I mean, obviously they're building him up, and a very good slick operator. But like I say, what I would say is that he's got a lot to learn as well. And like I say, he put it all in early and then kind of dipped off in phases when he realised. I mean, the one, I think it might be in the round 9 or whatever, late on, and he had Noakes all over the place, and he just bit down on his gum shield Noakes and dug back in and give it him back in it, kind of held him back off again. So they both got a lot to, still got more to learn. They're not the finished article yet, and even Sam, even though he's been boxing a few years, he's still got time to come again.
Next fight, Devin Haney and Brian Norman. A lot of people in the industry thought Brian Norman would knock Devin Haney out, but he put in another boxing masterclass. And I suppose rather than talking about the fight, the big talking point around that fight was it's similar to what we spoke about last week, where you didn't really give credit or rate the boxing skills of Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn. So this week we had a boxing display by Devin Haney. He kept the big puncher away, dropped him, and just played it safe. But then obviously there's been some comments, mainly from Eddie Hearn, who said he is not good to watch. So where do you kind of sit with that? And then
I wouldn't say he's not. He's good. It's an high level. Listen, it's a nice skill level fight. That the other guy was tough, muscular, strong. Devin Haney's had to come back, prove himself again, and I think he did that. Devin Haney can fight. He can stand toe to toe, have a bang, but he can also box. And I think in this fight, there were times when he were in the pocket having little bits of digs and a little bit of tear, and then he got back to his boxing. And I think that's the kind of stuff I like to see. I like to see very, very skilled fighters, like a game of chess when they're fighting, not just stood in the middle and toe to toe. But Devin can give it out when he needs to. But sometimes that's not always the best solution for the game plan for the fight. So he showed a different level of maturity this time. He's probably not as arrogant as he once was. And he's got back to boxing and doing what he can do well, and I thought he did really well. So I don't really agree with you on that one.
with regards to Brian Norman, what do you think went wrong for him? Because on paper that was the biggest name he fought, and obviously he got outboxed.
Well, like I say, you can be tearing through opponents and thinking that you're ready for the likes of Devin Haney, but when there's a different skill level there. Devin's more of a boxer, and it's all right having power, but a good boxer with decent power like Haney will probably always be the likes of the other guy who's tough, because you can keep out of danger and box from the outside and frustrate and not let them get the shots off. So you've got to have the boxing ability as well, and the skill, not just a tear up, unless you can constantly do it. Like I said, Devin Haney, he's a good boxer when he wants to be, when he fights the right fight. So he just came up short.
The point that Eddie made, which is quite a valid point, he had Brian Norman badly hurt. What did he miss the trick in by not trying to go for the stoppage and getting a clinical finish?
Listen, the thing is, sometimes you don't learn anything from stoppages. He was a comfortable win, and to be in that position and then decide to box through the rounds instead of trying to go for broken finish and probably run the risk of getting caught. He did the smart thing. So it wasn't a boring fight. Maybe he could have stopped him, but he didn't do that. He boxed. He got the rounds in. He boxed really well. And that's sometimes what you got to do. It's not all about knocking people out, in my opinion, anyway.
Then we go to the main event. I'm missing the Bam Bam fight because I know you haven't watched that. So
no, I didn't see that.
We'll talk about that next week. The main event, Anthony Yarde was a big underdog. What I'll tell you from my own reflection, I've never seen David Benavidez fight live before. Obviously, I've seen his hand speed on TV, but oh my days, that guy is fast. It's like watching a lightweight. I could not believe how quick he was watching him in person. So that's just my viewpoint on it. But with regards to the fight and the way it played out, Anthony's tactics in the fight, what did you make of it?
Well, one thing you have to give credit to Anthony Yarde for is he never shirks anybody, does he? He's been in with all the top guys. Beterbiev, was it Beterbiev he boxed?
Benavidez. Oh yeah, about previously, yeah, but Beterbiev and Kovalev.
Yeah, so he doesn't shirk the fights, and even with this Benavidez, I think he's probably one of the best out of there. I think he's going to call, he's going to give Bivol and Beterbiev problems. They will know how to deal with his speed, but it'll be an interesting fight because he's got tremendous hand speed, and Anthony Yarde just didn't have an hands for it. Anthony's a strong kid, he's muscular, but you just couldn't match him, and you can't get your shots off when somebody's throwing that level, that amount of volume at you. and he never stopped, did he, Benavidez? So he was like a little Duracell bunny, and I think he just overwhelmed Yarde at the time. I don't think there's really anything that Yarde could have done to avoid that, unless he was going to be really good on his feet, really mobile, moving, not being a target. But he's not that fast on his feet either. But like I say, it was a bit of a one-sided fight. Obviously, he got stopped, but there's no shame in what's happened, because, like I say, he's at that stage in Yarde where take all the fights what come. At least he's not shying away from them. He's getting in there and getting his money. He's having the fight, and fair play to him.
Well, I did say to Anthony this morning, I was lucky enough to speak to him. There's like the common comments you get about him is he's either fighting somebody that people are expecting him to just stop in a matter of seconds, or he'll be fighting someone where everyone thinks he's a massive underdog. So he can't really win. So
no, he can't, because that's how the division is. It is probably loaded in the sense where there's a good few at the top, and then the ones in the middle don't want to take the risk against fighting him. So he end up with the bottom of the opposition. Everybody's looking to the top guys to get the paydays. They're not looking to fight the gatekeepers like Yarde, because it could be a tough fight and they might not get to the bigger names in the sport. So they want to bypass that and go straight in for the big fights. That's where Anthony's at. That's why he's difficult, where he's either in the kids who he should easily beat, and then he's up to his neck in it against the top guys.
I don't know if you saw my post-fight interview with him. Obviously, it was to be fair, it was refreshing to see how humble he was in defeat. And he also said that, I'm going to be realistic. I've had 3 world title fights and I've got knocked out in all of them. But he's not in it for that. He wants to win. He wants the feeling of winning. But he said at the same time, if the opportunities come, he's going to keep taking them fights. What if you was guiding somebody like that? Would you continue doing that? Let's just say if you got offered Bivol next, or would you want to try and rebuild him? Like, what is the right or wrong thing to do in these situations? Did you get?
I heard that. Yeah, I think. Well, look, we had Johnny Nelson. He lost 2 world title fights. Well, he lost. Did he lost? Yeah, he lost 2 world title fights before he won one. And he was inconsistent. So he's at that age, Yarde. He's got a year or 2 left. Boxing's all about staying in it for the long term, and fighters come and they go, and leave opportunities or leave spaces for the likes of Yarde to come through. So, there is a chance that the Turbiev and Bivol are going to retire, or soon. It could be soon. He could still be there when they're out of the way. It might be a chance for him to be getting a crack. Like I say, he's been in with the best guys. And he's come up short, but like I say, whenever he's got his faculties and his training, he believes in himself. Go for it, but don't push yourself past the point. Where you can't ring with them fellas, and you're getting done in 2 and 3 rounds. He's not. He's getting past the halfway mark. And they're catching up with him, but he can take a shot. He can give a shot, and sometimes it's just a case of time, and maybe another year or 2 if he keeps at it. And he just, he's careful with what fights he takes. There's a chance he could be a world champion.
Well, based on what you've seen in Buatsi's previous fight, because that's the fight everyone still wants to see, who would you think is a favourite looking at both men's recent performances?
I'd have to go Yarde. Because Yarde's been getting beat at an higher level with really good kids. And Buatsi's never been anywhere like that. And I think that when he gets in with the likes of Buatsi, the shots won't be as fast, they won't be as hard, and he's going to be battle hardened to be in the top, in with the top fighters. So it's going to be an interesting fight, and I could see Anthony Yarde beating him.
Okay, and then the last one on David Benavidez. I had a fascinating interview with him in Dubai about a month ago, which I only put out during his fight week, and it turned out to be his most interactive interview, where he gave me an interesting account about his childhood, where he basically said that his father was extremely strict, like mega strict. He got a lot of ass whoopings. He said he could have grown up and hated his dad for it, but he's got to the point where he's got immense respect for his dad, and he believes that the reason he's got cars and houses and all the wealth he's got is because of the man that his dad shaped him to be. So, what do you kind of make of that?
Well, it's not the way these days, but this is probably the issue with a lot of youth of today, that nobody wants to be accountable, do they? They don't want to be accountable for their actions. And when you're a naughty boy, I was a bit of a naughty boy when I was at school, but I wasn't kind of, reprimanded by my father. It was my mother. My dad never laid a finger on us, but sometimes kids do need to be brought up stern and know the boundaries of other people. Otherwise, they do get into trouble. And Benavidez could have probably found himself going down the wrong track. And at the time, he probably did hate his dad. He probably did want to turn around and beat him up if he could. But as he's got older, he's probably realised that that's what he needed to keep him on track. And a good parent will realise what a kid needs to keep on track. Giving them everything they want and giving them an entitled life and no discipline. All it does is you have kids who grow up, causing problems all the time. So, that strict upbringing and the discipline has paid off well for him. So it's only now, probably as an adult, that he fully understands and appreciates that. And the other time you understand that is when you have kids of your own. That's the two times. So, like I say, he's done exceptionally well. He's got terrific hand speed, and it will be interesting to see how he goes on. And I'm sure the fight's all going to be made with Bivol and Beterbiev. So that will be, interesting times ahead.
Definitely. I want to ask you about that moment in the fight where Anthony had his left hand tied up, or right hand tied.
Yeah.
And he threw about 15, 20 left hand.
Yeah.
Who's right or wrong in that moment?
Well, nobody's right or wrong. It's just that after about 3 shots to the head, Anthony should have let go of him. I think he got him all this way. Is that, yeah? So he got him. What he should have done is, and you don't know whether Benavidez has got his hand around his neck anyway, but he should have just tried to dip down, roll around, push him away, and get behind him, because that's better than getting 15 shots to the head. He was a bit like a rabbit in the headlights at that point. But for me, I'd have been screaming, unattach yourself from him and get out of the way.
Definitely. So, he suggested to me yesterday that he's gonna try and maybe add somebody else to his corner. He obviously had James Cook, who sadly passed away recently.
Yeah.
The first fight he's had without James in recent times. If you was to say somebody was to join their team, maybe to work with Tunde, obviously he's shown his loyalty to Tunde from day dot, and he just wants to add somebody else like an experienced head. Who would you recommend?
Probably me.
Would you? I'd love to see you and Tunde working together.
Well, I know. Listen, I know, and you're a good friend of James. I know Tunde. He's got some strange methods, but Anthony. Anthony Yarde. I've got a lot of respect for Anthony Yarde because, like I say, he'll have a fight. He's not a fantastic boxer, but he's tried his best. Everything always comes in good shape. I always think he gives a good account of himself, and even when he's getting beat. And the attribute he's got is that he'll go and fight anybody. And you don't get fighters talk about fighting anybody, but not all of them do. And with him, he's doing it. So fair play to him. And I think he can come good at some point, but he will have to make a couple of adjustments. So yeah, we'll see.
Well, knowing you, I know you're very selective if somebody does approach you. So the fact that you're saying that you'd be happy to help him out.
Well, the thing is with him is you can tell he'll do the work. You can tell he'll put the work in training wise. He'll not be, telling you what to do. He'll listen. Anthony Yarde, I think that's the impression I get from him. I don't really know him. I've met him a few times at shows, and he's always a pleasant kid. But I don't think he's scared of hard work and discipline.
Yeah. He made some reference to something happened in the changing rooms, and he said, "I've never met James Cook, but I'm guessing he was a no-nonsense type character."
Oh, James was no nonsense. You look at him in his older years and think, "Bloody hell, who's this guy?" But he could fight. Do you know what I mean? He was very calm and collected. James.
He said there was an incident in the changing rooms, and he said if James was there, that wouldn't have happened. Obviously, I don't know what it was, but he said, so yeah, who knows? And then lastly, obviously just concluding on that, hopefully we'll see Benavidez in a big fight and we'll see Anthony Yarde back again. But a lovely, lovely, pleasant man, I must say, from my own experience. Last thing, Anthony Joshua has officially announced that he's left Ben Davison. He's now going to be trained by Igor Holub, his name is, and I believe he was Barinchek's trainer. So he's not actually Usyk's trainer. Usyk's trainer type of Yuri. but Ego's part of the team. What do you kind of make of that leaving Ben Davis? And obviously he announced it in the press conference with Jake Paul.
Well, like I say, Anthony's had different trainers, and it's nothing, it's nothing controversial, really. He's had a few fights with Ben. He had a few fights with, the other with the other trainers, and obviously he had a long career. He had a lot of fights with Robert McCracken, but he's had trainers. After 2 or 3 fights, he changes, and that's just another phase. And if that's what it takes to motivate him to get back in the ring, he's fighting Jake Paul, isn't he? So why not? He's like I say, he's at that stage, Anthony, now where he can kind of do what he wants, and the only time he's not going to be able to do what he wants is when people aren't willing to pay to watch him, and he loses his value. And at the minute, he ain't really, has he? Even win or lose, even after that terrible loss to Dubois, he ain't lost his value really. And this fight with Jake Paul, it's going to be astronomical money. But I just hope he does a number on Jake Paul, and then gets back into his proper boxing.
You will have seen the size difference in the face-off. Any concerns for Jake's health looking at the size difference?
Well, sometimes listen, there's been lots of fights in the past when you've had giants fighting smaller guys, and the smaller guys have filled them in. Height is not really always a thing. Obviously, in this case, it's the experience that Anthony Joshua's got. What's going to be the danger thing for Jake Paul? So that's where he should be worried. But Jake Paul, he'll have had a good look at Anthony Joshua, and probably thinks he can get through that fight. But then you have to ask yourself, well, he didn't beat Tommy Fury, so what chance has he got against the likes of Anthony Joshua?
Definitely. Let's see what happens. But well, that's it really, Dom. If people had any idea about the madness that's been going on behind the scenes whilst we've been doing this interview, I managed to get through boarding, do all sorts in the background whilst you're talking. But we managed to pull it off with the internet signal dropping out as well. But we're getting a regular amount of viewers that are enjoying watching this on a Sunday night before they go to bed. So we thought we'd deliver them another episode tonight.
Good stuff, and I'll see you when you get back. And let's talk about the fighter I've got who's gone kind of viral overnight with 8 million views on his little video that he put out. We'll have to put it up.
Yeah, I've seen that. He's done some sort of skit, as they call them, where he's cooking some food and he's tapped the table, but he thinks someone's knocking on the door.
Well, Harvey Eldin, he does a lot of. He's come to me for the last 2 fights. He boxed last night, boxed really well. Came under fire in the first round, nearly got knocked out, to be honest, and then boxed his way through. Mature performance. But yeah, he did a video of him cooking the stir fry. He tapped the spatula on the side of the pan and then looked around as if somebody's knocking at the door. But the whole skit was, boxing hasn't affected me or given me brain damage. And he goes over to the door to answer the door because he thinks somebody's knocking at the door and there's nobody there. So it was quite funny. And when I first saw it, I only watched it with the sound off, so I didn't quite get it. And then my nephew said, "Look, he's got 8 million views, that." Because it's madness in it, the internet, what people like. I mean, 8 million views for something like that. But, he'll get him. It's gone viral. And, he's getting his name out there. So it was funny.
Yep, definitely. The internet is a mad place. But any of the regular viewers, if you've not seen our interview with Anthony Yarde from this morning, I urge you to watch it. It's I'd say it's one of the best interviews I've done in recent times, because it's not easy speaking to a fighter who's just took a devastating loss literally 6 hours after the fight. So it was a good one. So it's definitely worth a watch. And the one with Benavidez as well, where he talked about just reflecting on his childhood again. So yeah, Dom, thank you very much. And just the last thing on them bags, have you got many left, or have they all flown out?
Yeah, no, I've got some bags left. People still getting in touch with me for the bags. I've sent the last lot, a few off to Joshua. I've got some more people still contacting me, mainly through this. So yeah, I've got about probably 10 bags left now that need to go. So I'm sure people will be on to me at some point.
Yep, I'll put the email address up in the comments. It'll be pinned to the comments. If you want one of them Ingle Gym special edition limited bags, contact Dom on that email address, and then you can arrange pickup, etc. So yeah, Dom, thank you very much, and then I'll catch you soon.
Over and out.
Thank you.